All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to What the Sheet. So in today's episode, I'm going to be kind of showing you one how to make, how I make our small crates here. So I got one here that's already done. So we're going to be making another one of these. Not 100% sure if I got to do the cutouts on it. I'll have to check text messages from the wife. See if that's what we need. But anyways, it's going to be this size crate, but we're going to be making it out of, these are common pine boards that I bought from Home Depot. You can buy the same thing at Menards or Lowe's or any other lumber store, hardware store that you got near you if they sell lumber. This is basically the cheapest wood you can buy. It's, pine's really soft, easy to work with. It's a good beginner material to work out if you're doing woodworking, just because it's cheap. You can get it just about anywhere, and with it being so cheap, you can do a lot of little projects, and if you mess it up, it's not the end of the world. Versus if you're buying like cedar or any of the hardwoods, like what I've got over there, those are alder boards and some oak, some red oak behind that. So buying those two boards on the end there cost me just as much to buy those two than it probably did to buy all of this. And I've got 3 of these 1x4 by 6 foot. I got a 1x3 by 8 foot, and then a 1x2. And this is a select pine, so this one's a little bit nicer than this. And the reason I had to buy this versus the plywood is I'm just making one bin, so I didn't want to go buy a full sheet of 3/4 inch. And when I was at Home Depot, they didn't actually have any of the 3/4 inch, they call them craft boards, or their project panels. So I had to buy regular lumber. And the main reason, I think I've discussed this in the past, but the main reason I switched to doing plywood for most of our projects is because of the consistency in the material. So with plywood, especially with the 3/4 stuff, is, as you can see, as it in the name, makes out to be, it's ply. So it's basically strips of wood all glued and pressed together. And what they do when they make the plywoods is they go, one layer this way, one layer this way, and they alternate them. And that gives it a really sturdy finish and also an even finish versus these. If I pick this one up, you kind of look down it. I'll put you on the table so you can kind of see the difference. So this one's not too bad. It's not too warped. But some of these, this one's not so bad either. But the problem is with some of these boards, you might be able to see a little bit on this one. It's kind of got a little bit of a curve to it. That tends to happen even with your more expensive lumber, like your cedar and your oak and all that, just because of it's basically a chunk of the tree that's been cut. So trees naturally twist and curl and bow and all that stuff, so that ends up coming out in the boards. And the wider the board is, the more you're going to have twists and cups and curls and all that jazz, versus it with the plywood, since it's just basically a slice of the tree, and they alternate the layers back and forth. You don't get any of that, so you get a really smooth, consistent finish. And the surfaces usually have like a thin veneer on the top, so when you stain everything, it gives a smooth finish as well. You don't get the uneven staining that you would on like this board. So like this knot here and here, it'll take stain differently. And then another big difference is, so this board is what they call a common pine at Home Depot. It's basically just a regular pine board with like a light finish. I don't even think it's sanded. I think it's just kind of, it's not rough sawn, but it's finish sawn. So it's got a smoother finish to it than it would be if it was like a rough sawn board. Versus this, their select pine. This is kind of like their premium cuts, if you will, of the lumber, and then it's got a really smooth finish on it. And what I like to do is, once I get everything made, is I'll go through and I'll sand everything down, all the pieces, to the same grit, So I'll probably do like 120 grit on everything, just because these don't need to be super smooth. And that way, like this will probably get roughed up a little bit, and then this will get smoothed out a little bit, and then that'll also take off some of the saw marks that are in here. And it might not pick it up on the camera, but with your eye you can kind of see there's almost like little waves going down the board on all of these, and it comes out even more when you sand it. You'll see kind of where the bumps and stuff are from not only the grain popping out, but also where the saw cut it at the sawmill. So by going over everything with like a 120 grit, it's enough to break down those little high marks and get everything smooth, and then it evens everything out so that even the select pine, which has got a smoother finish, will end up looking the same as these other common pine boards when it's all stained and put together. But yeah, so I'm gonna get all this cut, sanded, and I'll kind of show you how my process varies a little bit for putting this for assembly, just because these are a hard board or a solid lumber board versus a plywood, so you have to treat things a little bit different. But I'll get to that in a little bit. So I'll get them cut, sanded down to even finish, and then I'll catch you back when I'm starting to assemble. All right, what is going on, everybody? So we're back. I got the crate all put together, so I just used some 2-inch 18 gauge nails to tack everything, get it all up. And normally this should be good enough for kind of general use, but especially with this being regular lumber, I want to make sure that it's secure. So as you can see here on the smaller bin, what I've been doing is adding screws to the main support on the long ends to just make sure that nothing's going to separate. Because right now, all I have in here is I have basically 4 screws on each corner. So I got 2 on one side going into this board, and then 2 on this side connecting it to the support. So I got 4 on each end, or yeah, 4 on each end here for all kind of 3 rows. And on some of the older crates that I made, not these ones, here's one of my original ones. So you can see that I've got two sets of nails. So I got 2 going into the support on this side, and then 2 going in the side rail. And then I've also got another, I think 2 or 3 nail holes on this side going back into the support. So this one has more nails in the supports, but the problem with nails is they're easy to pull out. Even with the 18 gauge 2-inch long nails, they'll still pull out pretty easy. And if I'm going to do a cutout similar to either a single or the double, like on these 2, I like to have that screw on the backside here, especially for these pieces, because there's nothing supporting it all the way across. So if I just had, 2 or 3 nails here, this piece could easily get pulled off by a dog or a small kid, just bumping into it or something like that. So I want to add that screw just to give it that little bit of extra support. But going on with that, adding that screw, I'm going to use, especially for regular lumber, I want to use a countersink bit. Excuse me. So what this does is, as I drill in, it's just a small pilot hole. The edge of this bit here, see if it'll focus in. But the edge of this bit here, it'll actually cut basically like a little pocket for the screw to sit into. And the main reason I'm using this is because with a smaller lumber, or a smaller diameter lumber like this, you run the risk of it splitting when I'm putting a screw in, just because that screw is going to be, put in a big hole, or not a big hole, but a decent enough hole to where, depending on the grain, which, something like this, it'll split pretty easy, where the grain's almost going this way. So as that screw's going in, it's going to push out on the grain like that. And without doing a pilot hole, that screw's going to be having to push more and more lumber, or more of the board away, and you have a higher risk of it splitting. Something wider like this, it's not that big of an issue because the grain's a little bit tighter, and it's got a little bit more forgiveness along this whole piece, but a smaller diameter board like this, you run a really high risk of it splitting. And I definitely don't want that to happen, because then I have to take it all apart, put in a new piece. So by taking the little extra step of just running that pilot screw through on all three levels all the way around, so I got to do 12 pilot holes, and then I can just run the screw in as normal, and it'll make sure all of these are secure. Definitely overkill for a small bin like this, but at the end of the day, I want to make sure that, you know, whatever we're selling to people or giving to people, I don't want them in a few months' time to call us back or to complain to their friends that, hey, we got this cool toy bin from this guy and it was really nice for the first month until, you know, one day we went to go move it and the side panel just came ripping right off because, you know, it was just, you know, shoddily put together. And like I've said in past videos, you know, you want to exceed your customers' expectations for what they're getting for their product. So whether that's, you know, in this case, a crate, you know, clothing item, or even service related, you know, if you're going to somebody's house to fix something, you want to make sure that, you know, you fix it, but that also leave the place cleaner than when it was when you got there. I've done that in the past too, when I was a maintenance guy at an apartment complex. So what I'm going to do, I'll do all my pilot holes, and I'll kind of show you what they look like once they're all said and done. All right, so I got you on my head here so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So I have my Milwaukee M12 fuel installation driver with the 90-degree head on there, and then I just have my that countersink bit that I showed you earlier. So all I'm doing is just sliding in here. I don't want to use the drill chuck for this, just because it kind of gets in the way and I have a pretty tight squeeze to get in here. So what I'm doing is, I'll do this side. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off, flip it around to the other side so it's like that. And then what I'm coming and doing is coming up to the edge here, and with the drill kind of right up on the edge, it gives me almost it perfectly right in the middle. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact, but I want it as close as I can, and I can even do it like this. So this is one of the reasons why I love this drill, is because I can do get into tight spaces like this. Because even if I had the drill bit on the drill like this, I'd still have to go at an angle. So whereas going like this, I can get it almost straight, but not quite, but close enough. So all I'm going to do is just run the bit in all the way up to the edge of this kind of lip here, and go all the way down, and then do it for these other two boards, and then we'll be good to go. And then I just got to drive the bits in, or the screws in, and then we're done. So I'll show you kind of how that works. So just like that, and then you can kind of see here, it kind of gives the hole a little bit of a round or a smooth edge, which makes it, the screw, when I put it in, it'll sit a little bit more flush. And then, like I said before, it'll prevent the board from splitting when I put the screw in. So I'm just going to do that for the rest of these, and then I'll catch you and let you kind of see what it looks like when it's all said and done. Alright, so I got most of the screws in. I just got these two left to do here. So I'm going to kind of show you how this kind of ends up working. So if you kind of see, let me adjust you a little bit. So you can kind of see a little bit here on the edge. It's pulled away a little bit, which is fine. So what I'm going to do when I put this screw in is, as I'm running this screw in, it goes in pretty nice, as long as I keep the bit in. And then as I tighten it in, or as I sink it in there, it'll pull that little bit of that gap in, and then that screw ends up being relatively flush with the inside here. And then some of these are still a little proud, which isn't the end of the world, but I can go through and touch everything up. I just want to get everything in to begin with, and then I'll go through and cinch everything down once it's all there. So now that I got them all in, I'll just go back through And the nice thing about this drill, like I've said in the past, is so this head has multiple positions that you can put it in, and all you gotta do is just pull this collar, and then it'll swivel to whatever position you want it in. And you don't necessarily have to take it all the way off to make it adjust. So now I gotta it this way. I'll just go through, and I can just tighten all these screws down so it's a little bit more flush, and to make sure that everything's nice and tight. And like I said, this is definitely overkill for something like this. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that whatever I'm delivering is nice and a solid product. I don't want to be giving somebody something kind of janky or half-assed, even if it takes, you know, a few extra minutes of my day. It's not the end of the world, because I do this as a hobby, not as a actual income source, or a main income source, I should say. All right, so that's all done. Crate is finished. All that's really left to do now is go over the corners and all the edges with the sander to break them up, because they're kind of sharp with the way this lumber cuts. Same with the plywood, I do the same thing, where once I make the crate, I'll go over it with I think it's 60 grit, yeah, 60 grit sandpaper, and I'll hit all the edges, top, outside, and I do my best to kind of go along the inside here as well, just to break up this corner, just because especially if this is getting used as dog toys, this corner is probably going to get, the inside edge is going to get beat up just as much as the outside edge. So I just want to break it up as best I can to help prevent any chipping, especially with a solid lumber piece like this. But that's going to be the video for today. Make sure to leave a like and a comment, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.